Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of The Penguin Episode 3. Make sure to hit that sub button so you don't miss one of my reviews of The Penguin. I'm also reviewing From at the moment, and I also do celebrity interviews. Now, this really is the Victor episode, and what it does such a good job of is not only giving us more detail about the character of Victor, but enhancing the relationship between Victor and Oz. One of the best decisions this show made was having this story with Victor and Oz because it is so fascinating watching Oz transform this character of Victor, and I'm very excited to see how far Victor goes down this rabbit hole by the end of the show. But this episode does so well in Victor's case is making a huge choice, a huge life choice, a decision that's going to change his life forever. So we'll get to that. But we start with the Victor flashback, and it's cool how they tell you it's a flashback just seeing the flyer of vote for Bella Rael, and you know it's election night, which means it's flood night. But we get to meet Victor's family, and I'm glad they didn't drag this on, because sometimes when you do flashback episodes, you can drag on scenes like this. They gave us one. We got the idea of what his family was like with him and their relationship. It was enough. Victor wants more out of life. His dad was content, and his dad seemed like a very good person. But tragically, it doesn't end on a good note with his father, because they're arguing about who Victor's hanging around. He doesn't want him near Squid, who is this guy who is clearly leading them to rob a car. He's just a bad influence. But it's fascinating because really, Victor's going to end up with someone even worse after this flood, which is the Penguin. We also get to meet Cristin, who we've seen texting him, asking him where he is. And we see her in the past, and they're clearly in love. He kisses her on the roof, and they think they're about to see fireworks for election night, but it's the bombs that the Riddler set off. And this is where the flood commences, and we see the tragedy of him actually seeing his family's apartment flooded. And with a character like Victor, if this did not happen in his life, I do not believe he'd go down a bad route. I think this is that trauma that made his life decisions, his view of the world change, and that the Penguin's feeding on those views starting to change. And I love how when it cuts to the present, we get a great hysterical Penguin line. "You're getting your forehead grease all over my window, kid." That was so funny. And we get to see Oz now in his tight gray shirt under the jacket. I thought that was the funniest looking outfit so far. See, but Penguin can read people really well, and he can tell Victor's thinking about something else. Something's bothering him. And this is a lot of Victor kind of hiding his plans away from Penguin this episode. It's so fascinating, though, how scared people really are of Sofia Falcone to the point where Victor is actually struggling to light her cigarette. Now, in a twist of events, which I thought was awesome, the drug that Alberto Falcone was claiming was like his big plan, the drug actually came from Arkham. It comes from these mushrooms, and the basidio spores that are in them, and that sap, it causes the high. She was given them at Arkham, Sofia, and she'll explain to Zhao later what exactly those drugs did and what that could mean for putting it on the market. But she wants Oz in the meantime to handle this test batch. Now, while they're out, Victor's still at the apartment of Penguins, and he finally calls Gracilia back. And I love that Gracilia, when she first gets there, asks if he has seen Calvin, and Calvin was the one we saw in the flashback when they're hanging out on election night, but he was shot in the head by Sofia. That was the same kid. And you see that Victor's like, "Oh, I have no idea," and I don't think Victor has a clue that that happened. But she tells Victor she is leaving and going to California. She's like, "The school's underwater, our families are dead," and she offers him to come, and it's a good offer. He loves this girl, and he's in that same situation where his school's underwater, his family's dead. But Vic's scared he might be killed by the Penguin, and rightfully so if he tries to leave. And when she warns him to get out of this life, he says, "You sound like my father," which is true. That is deep down what his father obviously would be saying. And he gives her the money and says, "Get me a ticket, I'll meet you at the bus stop." So this is now a twist too, where you're seeing Victor's like, "Oh wow, he's actually considering leaving." Now I see that Penguin brings Sofia and Victor to the Triads because they can't be rats on this plan and tell the Falcones. So he has a connection there first, which is this guy, Link. I love that he calls on the spot the drug Bliss, which is also the title of the episode. But Link wants to know how are they going to pull this off without support within the family. But Penguin says Johnny Vitti. So Johnny Vitti's the one he knows has been sleeping with Luca Falcone's wife. So he has the blackmail he needs. And that's where Sofia connects the dots like, "Why did you say Johnny Vitti? What do you know about him?" So Johnny Vitti's the one who wants to make the call to the head guy, which is Zhao. Meanwhile, Victor is practicing his quitting speech to the Penguin. He knows it's a waste of time because he's like, he's just going to kill me. So the cop actually comes here and finds money in his pocket. And Victor on the spot's like, "Oh, I don't have any money." So it's a wink-wink situation where the cop just takes the money and they all both move on. So Victor, again, showing his street smarts. Now, one of my favorite scenes of the show so far is actually this restaurant scene with Victor and the Penguin. And when Victor stutters his order, Penguin snaps at the waiter, like, let him finish. And he says to Victor, let him wait. Take up space. You got fight in you. You got to let it out. So this is a great character to have opposite of Oz, someone who stutters, who also has that trial in their life like he does with the clubfoot. And Penguin asks about his parents now, so they bond here. And he's like, it's not right. Your dad never ate in a nice restaurant. He said the world is not set up for honest men to succeed. So this is all stuff getting into Victor's head that would eventually lead to him sticking with Oz. Meanwhile, we see the plan of Penguin even being in that restaurant was because he knew Luca Falcone's wife would be there, Tina. And he has her sleep with Johnny so they can walk in on it. He probably told Tina for her to go along with this, that they were just going to tell Luca if she didn't do this. But Johnny, when he's confronted, does what Alberto did to Penguin. He hits a soft spot. He's like, people keep the Penguin around as entertainment because everyone knows you're a joke. And that's when he attacks him and almost pulls his teeth out. That was great. Colin Farrell was just excellent there. But it works and they get Johnny to call Zhao. Now, when they're at the club and they're doing the test batch for the drug, we see for the first time this white suit Penguin, which was also hysterical. I loved it. And Vic is the bagman and he has the prostitutes selling the drug. But this is where Sofia, he starts losing a bit because Sofia is thinking about what Johnny Vitti said to her, hinting at something the Penguin did to her. And now we know that the Penguin basically was the rat to her dad, and her dad actually was the one who put her in Arkham. So he was taking advantage and moving up in the world, just obeying orders that maybe he himself even didn't agree with, but he did not know. He says it was Arkham that was going to be the case. But Sophia brings up, was it worth it what you did to me? And you'll see by the end of the episode, they'll talk about this again. And he admits, like, yes, it was, but I'm sorry, he says. So it's the Penguin. He's mostly full of it, but I do think he does have some kind of connection to Sophia there, like he says. But you see that Zhao is still hesitant when he meets with Sofia and Oz and is like, how can I trust you when I know where you have been, talking about Sofia and Arkham? But Sofia does a great sales pitch here. Fact that everyone's broken after the flood and the drug is what they need now more than ever, because it worked in that sense at Arkham, that the drug made the prisoners, them, content and submissive. So it also brings control with it, and that if whoever is dealing these drugs will control the drug market. Meanwhile, Victor's still getting texts from Gracia like, where are you? She's about to go on this bus, so he has to make this big life decision. And then he just starts losing it. He's seeing the bombs again in visions, drops the drugs, and it was a really cool edit seeing the flood too. But Oz comes to Victor in the bathroom, and he's letting him know the deal is done. They closed it with the triads, and he's like, you're the bagman, I'm proud of you. Just even the talk of the bagman reminds me of Better Call Saul, and the show feels very influenced also by Breaking Bad in many ways. But he sees his phone, Oz, and he says, you going somewhere? Sees the text, he's like, you want to bail for some piece of ass? That was so funny. But Oz is really more offended than anything. He's like, what did you have before me? You were a loser. He's like, you stayed because you want something better. You want more than your father ever had. And he says to him, there's no right or wrong. This is just survival. And he's basically saying how messed up the world is. And he's like, there's no awards for dying in the projects. Now, obviously pissed off Victor, but deep down, Victor is agreeing with what the Penguin is saying here. Now, Victor takes his car and they give us a nice misdirect where you see that he's watching Gracilia at the bus stop, but he doesn't get out of the car. He's making this choice. I also love the music they're playing here, by the way. But it's a great setup for the payoff at the end of the episode, because then we go back to Penguin and Sofia talking about what they were just alluding to with what happened with Carmine. But she also says, too, that she isn't the hangman. So I thought that was interesting because I actually took that as fact, the way she said it. So there might be something where she was framed as the actual hangman. Now, I know next week is the Sofia episode, so I'm really excited to learn about her character and her past in Arkham. So this just gets me pumped for that. But you see, while the Penguin's apologizing to her, he's still saying he doesn't regret what he did, and it got him the life he wanted, moving up, better life. And this is the route that Victor is taking now under the Penguin. And she's like, I don't know how to trust you. But he's like, how about I keep showing you? But this is when the Maroni show up. You knew this was going to happen, where the Maronis don't know about his involvement with Sofia Falcone, and Sofia Falcone doesn't know about his involvement with the Maronis, and now that's going to clash. And they're about to be executed by the Maronis, but Victor comes through and he drives into the henchmen. This is a big moment. Not only he made this choice, no one told him to do it, and he killed the guy. And he saves the Penguin. And I love, he goes, what about Sofia when they're leaving the car? And Penguin says, leave her. And then again, like I'm saying, they keep staying true to that villain aspect of the Penguin, which I love. And he says, we're in it now, Vic, we're in it now. So really exciting. And it just like makes you wonder, where is this going to go now? Because now we've seen this big change in Victor, and how far will he go down this path with the Penguin? I think it's very exciting and interesting. And I'm excited as hell to learn about Sofia the next episode. So again, I think it's one of the most consistent shows I've seen in a while. It's got that HBO quality. I'm gonna give this one another 9. And yeah, right now this is like my favorite show. So I'm really pumped about how good it's been. And I think it can only go up from here in the way they've set everything up. So let me know what you thought of it down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment, try to respond as many as I can. Again, hit that sub button. It helps in so many ways you have no idea. And I'll see you next time.